Imagine VR with incredibly rich colors that make it feel like you're really there. OLED panels that make the darkest areas in your favorite spooky VR games a living nightmare. And a headset that weighs only 127 grams, which is less than your phone, making it the most comfortable VR headset on the market. This is the Bigscreen Beyond. It's awesome. That looks so real. Things look so sharp. The field of view is a bit small. What's with all the glare? That looks incredible. A VR headset for VR enthusiasts and those serious about wanting something lightweight, comfortable, and absolutely awesome. I've used 7 different VR headsets now, and the Bigscreen Beyond is by far my favorite. In this review, I'm going to talk about the good, the bad, and the intricate details of owning and using a Beyond for the last year. This is going to be quite an extended review, so make sure to check the timestamps if you want to skip around. The review. Alright, I'm not going to talk about any of the detailed specs because those should already be known or easily researched if you have any questions about the Beyond. What I am going to talk about in this review is my experience, which is what should matter the most to you all. That being said, the Beyond construction is what we're going to start with. This is going to be all things physical. We're going to go over the weight, the size, the feeling, materials, material quality, mic placement, all that shit, okay? The Bigscreen Beyond is a beautiful VR headset that makes it look like you're a character from Cyberpunk. And that's cool, right? Right, guys? Right? Guys. As mentioned earlier, this headset is tiny. Tiny! Weighing in at only 127 grams and being about the size of a Quest 3 controller. The Bigscreen Beyond actually weighs less than the Quest 3 controller, and it's even a bit smaller. But definitely not smaller than my penis. Have we talked about the materials used? Because the Beyond feels great. To keep things lightweight, the Beyond has a sleek plastic housing with a gloss translucent front panel that allows you to see the internal circuitry. Alright, sorry. Was it worth it? The overall construction of the Beyond feels good, and you could see that some efforts went into the design here. The microphones are placed on the bottom of the headset, which sounds amazing by the way, and it's actually what I'm using to record this video. The head strap attachments are sturdy enough, and I haven't had any issues with them. The strap itself is a cloth material with a top strap option available if you want a more secure setup. Of course, the audio strap is an option as well, which we will talk a little bit more in detail later in this review. Lastly, we have the USB-C ports for your video cable, as well as your audio solution, which can be used with the USB-C port to 3.5mm cable converter. There aren't any IPD adjustment dials here, as the Beyond is a custom-made VR headset that is tailored specifically for you. Alright, we're going to talk about the custom design and comfort. This is going to go over everything regarding the custom design and comfort. I think what stands out the most when talking about the Beyond is the custom molded facial interface to fit your face shape perfectly. This enhances comfort and alleviates any major pressure points to give you some of the best experiences in VR, as you can completely forget you're wearing a VR headset at times. With a custom facial interface and the IPD being in a fixed position, this is not a shareable VR headset. This is a VR headset that is custom fit for you. While I wasn't immediately excited about the custom fit facial interface, and I was more interested in its lightweight design, the custom interface is something I want attached to all of my VR headsets at this point. The comfort it brings is great, and while it can feel a bit weird and intrusive at first in some ways, since it all kind of sits close to your eyes, it's an amazingly comfortable way of wearing a VR headset. And every time I go back to my Quest 3, I'm immediately wishing I had the same lightweight form factor and custom facial interface of my Beyond. The best way I could describe it is that when I put on my Bigscreen Beyond, I feel comfortable, and I'm at home. Where with the Quest 3, I'm constantly aware that I'm wearing a VR headset with its added weight and larger design. There are 2 things that stand out to me that make the Beyond so much better. The first thing we can talk about is the fact that the Beyond is so much smaller and lightweight, and it sits so much closer to your face. This reduces inertia significantly, which is what happens when you move something quickly, like your head, but the other object wants to remain still. In this example, the VR headset. Basically, when you're moving your head quickly left and right, larger VR headsets will be heavier and further away from your face, which causes your head to move first and the headset to catch up later to your head movement. This creates an issue with the image in VR not moving consistently with your head movement. This creates an issue with the image in VR not always being aligned with your eyes when you're moving your head, causing a swinging action of the VR headset as you move your head around, which causes excess movement in VR that is unwanted. This is usually not noticed if you have not experienced the other side of things, which is not having these unwanted movements in VR. The Bigscreen Beyond is lightweight and tiny enough to not have these issues with inertia, as it stays closely attached to your face and it doesn't swing around. This means that the Bigscreen Beyond will stay in the same spot on your face when you turn your head left and right, which not only feels great for comfort, but it also increases your visibility when turning quickly as the displays in front of you are not moving around. This, honestly, is something that is tough to understand unless you experience it for yourself. Don't get me wrong, the Quest 3 and other VR headsets are still great and get the job done. But the Beyond is on another level regarding comfort with its unique custom interface and ultra lightweight design. As far as the visuals go, all things visual, we're talking about lenses, display, glare, field of view, all that stuff. This section will go through all things visual wearing the headset. So when you first put on the Beyond, you'll notice a couple of things. The first might be that the field of view isn't the best. At around 100 degrees, you'll have something better than the Quest 2, but not quite as good as the Quest 3 at 110 degrees field of view. The displays in the Beyond are the best I've used though, and with super high resolution, you'll have a beautiful image that looks similar to a 1440p monitor. This means you're not going to see pixel jaggies in most cases, especially with anti-aliasing processing in games. Display brightness I found great, and while some reviewers I've heard complaining about this, I think it's a non-issue. I personally feel like some reviewers mentioned the brightness being lower, so now every reviewer must say something about the brightness as well. Yes, the Bigscreen Beyond displays do not get as bright as something like the Quest 3 or the Valve Index, and people automatically attach this with a negative connotation, since it's implied that brighter equals better. Yeah, this is the case if things are not bright enough, but this is not true with the Bigscreen Beyond in my experience. The Beyond is definitely bright enough, and I had no issues with the displays being too dim for any of the games I've played, including really dark games like Metro Awakening, Half-Life Alyx, or iRacing at nighttime. The display brightness is adequate, and what I mean by this is that people should not have any issues with things being too dark in the Beyond for them to see. Again, these are OLED panels, so people may confuse the luxury of OLEDs with a darker display. Yes, dark scenes get fucking dark, but everything that needs to be exposed is there and visible. This is the nature of OLED panels, and while they do not get as bright as LCD displays, I certainly did not have any issues with them not getting bright enough. As a quick example, I use my Quest 3 at around 50% brightness. Anything more and things are too bright for long sessions and give me eye fatigue. With the Beyond, while the image is darker, I still run at 50% brightness. This not only makes it easier on my eyes, but it also allows me to run a lower fan speed to cool the displays in the Beyond, which I will talk more about the fan speed in the software section. One of the final things I want to touch on the displays are the potential for ghosting at higher brightness levels. Everyone is unique, and we all perceive things differently. With that in mind, some can tell the difference between 90 Hz and 120 Hz, and some cannot. With the brightness of the displays in the Beyond cranked to 100% or higher, some users may notice some image ghosting effects with movement. At 100% brightness, the Beyond displays are too bright for my taste, so I do not run into this issue. But for those who like to max out their brightness, this might be something to consider if you're highly perceptive to persistence. To quickly discuss the screen door effect and Mura, I do not notice Mura at all. And the screen door effect is no different than looking at a 1080p monitor. If you look really closely, you could see little dark areas between pixels. But you have to really search for it to see it, as it's incredibly tiny. For those who do not know, screen door effect is what you could see when the pixel density is low, which allows you to see the lines between each pixel, looking like a screen door. Mura is what happens when the display has inconsistent colors on an otherwise uniform background. With this, it'll look like your display has dirt or smudges on it when looking at clear blue skies, because you'll see patches of inconsistent blue colors due to the displays not being accurate. With the Beyond, I don't notice any of these things at all, and things look great. Alright, so let's talk about the overall lens clarity and the sweet spot. For those who know VR lenses, they all have a sweet spot. This is where your eyes are going to be perfectly aligned with the lenses to give you the best viewing experience optically. When your eyes are out of the sweet spot, things might look blurry, color shifted, and just not right. With the Beyond having a custom interface that's molded perfectly for your face, getting in this sweet spot is incredibly easy, as things are guided perfectly every time you put it on. There may be minor adjustments needed here and there, but I find myself needing to adjust things far less than any other headset. The image clarity while in that sweet spot is great, and while I did have issues with my first facial interface being too thick, which had my eyes too far away from the lenses, the thinner facial interface I have now is great, and it brings my eyes nice and close to the lenses. When you're in this nice viewing spot, things are wonderful, but don't expect Quest 3-like edge-to-edge clarity, because the Beyond still has blurry edges when looking through the lenses. This is a difficult area to discuss with transparency, because it is impossible to really demonstrate these things with just my voice and some video editing. But I will say that the blur is going to be similar to what you'd see with the Quest 2 or Valve Index, with things looking blurry if you peek at the edges of the lenses. Of course, the center of the lenses are fantastically sharp, and allow you to see an awesome amount of detail that is just not possible with other headsets with lower resolution. To give you the best example, the Bigscreen Beyond is the same jump that you would see in resolution going from the Valve Index to the Quest 3 as you'd see going from the Quest 3 to the Beyond. To clarify, you gain roughly 2.2 million pixels per eye going from the Valve Index to the Quest 3. And you also gain 2 million pixels per eye, of course, going from the Quest 3 to the Beyond. The jump is very similar. To put things simply, the Beyond has super high resolution displays, and you'll be very satisfied here. Before we continue, I want to quickly talk about the differences between 90Hz and 75Hz. These are the two refresh rates which the Beyond runs, and with 75Hz running, you get the full resolution of 2560 by 2560 pixels per eye. However, when you crank it up to 90Hz, the resolution is lowered to 1920 by 1920 pixels per eye. This does not mean you are suddenly seeing a 1920 by 1920 image, because the displays are still running at 2560 by 2560. It's just that the video being displayed is upscaled from 1920 by 1920 per eye to 2560 by 2560, okay? With that in mind, 75Hz running, the display's native resolution looks absolutely stunning. For the entire time that I've used my Beyond, I've been using 90Hz, because it makes more sense to me to have a more fluid experience. But I recently tested out 75Hz again, and holy shit, things look good. Don't get me wrong, 90Hz in the Beyond looks incredible, but the extra sharpness that 75Hz brings makes me sad that we cannot access this resolution at 90Hz, because it is beautiful. That being said, I'm sticking to 90Hz for the extra frames. 75Hz feels good, and it's plenty playable, but I do a lot of iRacing, and the smoothness of 90Hz in such a competitive racing simulator is necessary for me. Moving on, let's talk about the glare. Glare is noticed more in some games than others. In American Truck Simulator, I noticed more glare at night, but oddly enough, while playing Beat Saber, I didn't notice any glare issues at all. Perhaps this is due to the dashboard in American Truck Simulator lighting up a corner of the displays, which contributes to the glare effect, seeming to illuminate areas from the edges of the displays. However, either way, the glare is both good and bad. I would personally say that the glare is worse than the Index, simply because the glare spots are slightly more apparent and closer to the center of the eye. I believe the Beyond glare seems worse because of how much smaller the lenses are, as well as the lower field of view the Beyond has compared to the Index. This creates a more compact viewing space, which brings everything closer together, and this contributes to the glare effect being a bit worse than something like the Valve Index, since it will be more centralized. That being said, holy fuck, the displays on the Beyond are amazing. Glare or not, having true black levels in VR is incredible. The added contrast and micro OLED displays bring is outstanding, and they do an incredible amount to add to the immersion in VR. This brings me to the colors. I was playing Subnautica with the Submersed mod in VR, which is awesome by the way, and my first few sessions playing were with my Beyond. I was blown away at how realistic the water effects looked, and the depth of color is... I don't even have words for it. It's simply amazing. I realized how much more depth and clarity OLED displays bring in VR when I turned on my Quest 3 for the first time in weeks to get it ready to show my mom Subnautica. When I looked through the lenses of the Quest 3 and Subnautica, the difference was immediately noticed, and drastic. The Quest 3 colors were muted, gray, and washed out, and the black levels just weren't there at all. It looked like I was swimming underwater not as myself, but as a drone, while I watched through a lower res screen. This is the difference the Bigscreen Beyond brings with its displays, and this is what makes it my go-to headset for anything and everything VR. Sure, I could adapt to an LCD panel again for VR, but the difference is massive, and the immersion OLED displays bring is the difference between feeling like you're actually there and knowingly looking at a display. The Bigscreen Beyond really is on another level of immersion with its OLED panels. Now we're going to talk about audio. With the Bigscreen Beyond, you're expected to BYOH. For those who don't know, bring your own headphones. The overall design philosophy for the Beyond is to bring the most tiny and lightweight VR headset to the market, so audio was not a priority there. During my first few months using the Beyond, before the audio strap was released, I was using my wired IEMs, which were a little cumbersome with the cables held to the head strap with Velcro ties. The cable and ties were not an issue, but removing and putting on my headset was a bit tedious with having to remove or insert my IEMs each time. You can, of course, use Bluetooth headphones, IEMs, or create your own audio solution with parts from other headsets if you're crafty. Personally, I have been looking forward to the Beyond audio strap, and with it, I've been pleasantly surprised with its audio fidelity. I wouldn't say I'm an audiophile, but I've definitely had my run with buying various headphones to find my preferred sound signature. With the Beyond audio strap, I'm very happy with the quality of the speakers, but the strap design itself is quite poor in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, it works fine, and it's very comfy, and I do not regret purchasing it, but there are some issues I find frustrating at times when coming from something like the Valve Index or the Quest 3 with its off-ear audio solution that feels great. This review is for the Beyond itself though, so I'm going to leave it at that. If you want more details about the audio strap and what issues I found, I have a review specifically covering the Beyond audio strap, so make sure to check it out over there. I'll leave a link down below. As we discussed before, if you enjoyed listening to this review, then you're in luck, because it has been recorded with the Bigscreen Beyond microphone. Since this entire review is a demonstration of the Beyond's mic, I'm just going to leave this brief. Tracking. So as we continue with this review, let's talk briefly about tracking. The Bigscreen Beyond is a PCVR dedicated headset, and with no cameras attached for tracking or pass-through, this means the Beyond will need base stations for tracking in your playspace. Tracking is great when things are set up properly, but with the Beyond being so tiny, naturally, it loses tracking with the base stations every once in a while when the headset is occluded. The tracking issues that do happen are few and far between, so it's nothing that I would be concerned about, as most of the time that I get tracking loss, I'm doing something like grabbing a drink because I have a massive bottle in my hands that begin to occlude the headset. I only use 2 base stations, and I would imagine this issue being forgotten if I added a third. Otherwise, tracking is fantastic, and I have no issues here. If we talk about the software is where you're going to be able to adjust the fan speed, display brightness, the refresh rate, and the light colors on the headset, as well as update the firmware. Unfortunately, the Bigscreen Beyond is not directly communicating with Steam VR to adjust things like display brightness, display frequency, fan speed, and the color of the internal lights that is seen through the front panel of the Beyond. This is where the Bigscreen Beyond utility comes into play. Here you can adjust all of these things and see some information including total usage and your firmware version. Alright, this section I'm going to talk about some of the best accessories that you can get with the Beyond and some that I definitely recommend. First, I want to talk about what really matters, which is protecting your VR lenses. VR lenses are not easily replaced, and in most cases will be the cost of the entire headset if you ever need to have them replaced. This is why it's important to install VR lens inserts, whether prescription or non-prescription, to protect your lenses from getting scratched as you clean them. VR Rock is one of the few companies that make lenses for the Bigscreen Beyond, and these are highly recommended. They have a magnetic design that easily pop over the VR lenses to protect them and correct your vision if you need a prescription. There are also options to add blue light filters to them if you desire. If you want a pair for yourself, I'm going to leave a link in the description down below. So make sure you bookmark this and pick some up. They're going to be well worth it. The other accessory that I definitely consider is the Beyond audio strap itself. I made a separate review for this specifically, so I'm not going to talk too much about it here, but it does add amazing comfort with the strap cupping the back of your head nicely, and I personally enjoy the Beyond audio strap better than my Valve Index speakers. They sound much nicer. I'm going to link that review down below. Check it out. Alright, with all great things said about the Beyond, there are some issues to discuss. Sometimes, when turning on the headset and putting it on, you are left with a broken, pixelated, fuzzy display. This is immediately resolved if you simply unplug the USB cable and plug it back into the headset. No need to restart VR. This is a minor issue, as it only happens when first starting up VR, so it doesn't ever ruin the VR experience in the middle of a session. But it's an issue that never happened on any other VR headset that I've used. This maybe happens 1 out of 20 times that I start VR. Some people have complained about the Beyond being a dim headset. I'm not one of them. I'm one of the people who likes to lower the brightness of my displays so my eyes are comfortable and relaxed. I definitely do not enjoy dim displays, but I do not enjoy squinting when viewing them either. Your eyes typically adjust to your environment. This is why most of us tend to lower the brightness of our phones when we're scrolling socials before bed, because our eyes are adjusted to the dark room, with our pupils dilated. With the Beyond completely isolating your eyes in a dark facial gasket with zero light leakage, your eyes will adjust as well, as your pupils begin to take in more light. This matters because I think most people who say the displays are dim are simply confused by the effect that OLED displays bring, and not so much that the displays are actually dim. That being said, the displays are definitely more dim than other headsets, there's no doubt about that. I just don't see a reason to desire brightness levels that are so blinding, and I don't see a reason to make an issue about it. For me, I'm currently running my Beyond at 45% brightness. I recently turned it down a bit, and that's plenty for me to enjoy while sim racing at night, playing Half-Life Alyx during the spooky spookies, or any other VR title that's dark. I'm able to see in the dark environments at lower brightness levels, and this is because, as I said earlier, your eyes adapt and adjust to dark environments. With discussion about display brightness, we have to further this conversation and talk about what happens when you turn the brightness too high on the Beyond, which is something that's been called persistence. Some people will be perceptive to this issue, where there may be a ghosting effect with quick movements when your display brightness is at higher levels. I start to notice it myself when I crank up to 100% brightness, but this is too bright for my taste anyway. So persistence was never an issue for me as I run my displays at 45%. If you are one of the people who desire a higher brightness level, this means the displays begin to warm up more as well, which you will begin to feel while wearing the headset for longer periods. At 45% brightness, my displays take a little bit of time to get hot enough for me to even notice. Hours. However, if you enjoy much higher brightness levels, then things can get a little warm during longer sessions, which may give you soggy, sweaty eyelids. Speaking of sweaty eyelids, this is something the Beyond users know well, coming from other headsets. There isn't much room for air circulation within these tiny facial gasket cutouts for your eyes, so things can get sweaty. But it's different than other headsets, because only your eyelids will become sweaty, since it's the only area where you are exposed to the warm air from the headset. Just a little fun note, and something to look forward to, because I personally never had experienced sweaty eyelids until I got my Beyond. As we continue the discussion about brightness, heat levels, this brings us to the fan. I run my fan at 75%, which is a perfect balance of keeping the headset on the cooler side and not introducing audible fan noise. If you are running higher fan speeds due to higher brightness levels, which bring higher heat, then you may hear the fan running, and you may even feel the subtle vibrations through the headset itself on your face. Again, at 75% fan speed, I do not hear or feel the fan running, so this should be a non-issue for those who are reasonable with their display brightness to keep the heat levels in check. With the Beyond field of view being a bit on the smaller side, you want to ensure you are as close to the lenses as you can get, to ensure you're getting the most field of view out of your headset. For me, this means that my eyelashes can touch the displays at times. This isn't felt, so it's no issue there. But what does become a problem is the oils that are being brushed onto the lenses as my eyelashes touch them. This means I'm wiping down the lenses after each use to keep them clean. This is something I do with my Quest and Index on occasion anyway, but I find myself cleaning the Beyond lenses a little bit more frequently. When we talk about the gasket, it is conformed specifically for your face, and it does create nice even pressure over your face. The gasket still puts pressure on your face. It's just not nearly as much or nearly as uncomfortable as other VR headsets. I still get face marks due to this, and I'm mentioning this not so much as an issue, but to give you a realistic idea of what you're gonna get. It's still super comfortable though, like don't get me wrong there. It's better than any other VR headset that I've used as far as facial gaskets go. My first Beyond unit came with 2 dead pixels, one in the center of each eye. Fortunately for me, I needed to change my IPD anyway, so I shipped the headset back for replacement. Nothing is perfect, and these issues do happen. My second unit with my proper IPD is great, and I had no issues with dead pixels there. Lastly, it seems the plastics that house the Beyond loosen up over time, and now every time I grab it, the headset makes a little bit of a squeaking noise. I'll try to demonstrate it here. If it picks it up on the mic, I'll leave this in. It's just in little areas on the bottom of the headset. If you grab the side of it, it doesn't make that noise. It's just very specific parts of the plastics that tend to either shift around, or they just don't have proper dampers, or they're not a tight fit, or whatever the problem is. It makes some squeaking noises, okay? It's not a huge deal, but it does. Alright, so what are my thoughts on the Beyond? After using my Beyond for nearly a year, I can confidently say that I'm happy with my purchase. I will use my Beyond any day over the Quest 3 or Valve Index. There's no competition. The only reason I use my Quest 3 now is for exclusive titles and when I want to lay down in bed, or when I share it with my mom to play walkabout minigolf together. The Bigscreen Beyond may not be perfect, and it has its quirks with field of view being on the lower side, and pancake lenses that have similar edge-to-edge clarity to Fresnel lenses. But these things are easily overlooked with everything else the Beyond has going for it. The OLED displays are an absolute game changer, with things looking far more realistic, and the atmosphere of any game, whether bright with colors and beautiful skies, or dark with horrifying pitch black environments, is an absolutely incredible experience, and it feels like I'm exploring each game for the first time again, because things really do look that much better. This fails to mention what really matters to me, which is the comfort of VR, and the Beyond is outstanding in this department for obvious reasons. I can wear my Beyond for hours and hours without any headaches, neck strain, or comfort issues that would otherwise make me want to remove the headset. After wearing the Beyond for a while, any other VR headset feels massive, and that's because they are, when you compare them to the Bigscreen Beyond. The Bigscreen Beyond is a custom-made VR headset that is created specifically for you. This means it is not shareable, and will be tough to sell on the used market later down the road. The Beyond is not made for everyone, but for those who it is made for, those people are going to have an absolutely incredible time in VR, because what the Beyond does bring is a super comfortable, lightweight design that is matched by no other headset on the market. This is one of the most important factors for me, because it means I can actually play in VR comfortably for hours at a time. The Beyond's OLED displays enhance the immersion tenfold. Seriously, I can't express how much more realistic and true to real life things feel with proper black levels and stunning color details. If you currently own a VR headset without OLED displays, do me a favor and go into a dark environment in VR and peek into the very edges of your facial gasket where the screens stop. Notice how you can see the edges of the displays, where things get much darker as you look at the edge of your headset and facial gasket? Yeah, that's how dark it gets in the Bigscreen Beyond, with its OLED displays. Again, blacks are actually black in the Beyond and not gray like any other VR headset with an LCD display. It's awesome. Not only do you get such a rich and beautiful image with OLED displays, the displays in the Beyond are 2560 by 2560 resolution per eye, with 32 pixels per degree, bringing you some seriously sharp images that compare to a 1440p flat screen display in terms of clarity. If this all sounds good to you, then you will not be disappointed with the Beyond. Just know its quirks and understand that you may need to be patient while ensuring your custom fit design is made perfectly for you, and you may need to make some adjustments to your IPD or facial gasket. But once things are set up right, the experience you're going to get in the Beyond is simply unmatched. Thank you all for hanging out with me and hearing me ramble about my experiences with the Beyond. I can talk much more about it, I could talk all day, but we must end this video at some point. If you liked it, please make sure to give the video a like, it helps me a ton, thank you. If you want to see more VR content, subscribing is one way to do it. Thank you for that. I review every game I play in VR, so make sure to check it out. Until next time, make sure you think for yourself, which means question yourself, do what makes you happy, and I'll see you all next time.
Oh, I'm so stupid.